Now, for more on the return of Broadway, let's bring in actor and musician and two-time Tony Award winner Michael Cerveris. Michael, welcome to the show. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sean.
You know, a lot to be happy about in Karina's story that we just heard, but as much as we would all like to say, hey, it's back, bringing Broadway back is still very much in uncharted territory, and right now it looks like fall at the earliest. What are you hearing from your colleagues?
Well, pretty much the same thing. There was some hope today in an article in the New York Times that the New York Mayor, Bill de Blasio, is planning to have vaccination sites specifically geared for theater workers, which would include not just actors, but all kinds of people who work in the theater in New York and Broadway, and presumably, although it's not entirely clear, other theaters as well, regional theaters and off-Broadway theaters and off-Broadway theaters. But it's not moving actors up in line at all. It's just meaning that when actors are eligible according to the New York State rules, there will be sites that will kind of be geared to making sure that industry professionals are vaccinated, because it's pretty commonly recognized that that's going to be a key to making things happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's still a long process, and with a lot of hurdles and a lot of really frustrated and desperate people.
Yeah, and people have had to reinvent themselves in many ways, and you've been able to focus more on TV and film work. And have you heard stories of people really thinking out of the box and tapping into skills perhaps they didn't know they had? And tell me a bit about what you've been doing.
I have heard a lot of stories of friends, being resourceful. One thing that I can say is people who've chosen to have a career in the arts are people who are already thinking outside the box and who are already fighting the odds, even the best of times. People like my friend Robbie Fairchild, who is a fantastic New York City ballet dancer and who transitioned into a brilliant career on stage and on Broadway in An American in Paris. He began a flower business and began providing flowers for weddings and functions and things, because it was a skill that he had, something that he is enjoyed, and he's managed to turn it into a way to sustain himself. And that's just one of hundreds and hundreds of things that people have done. People have moved home, people have moved out of the city, people have found new ways to scrape by. The thing is, people were finding new ways to scrape by in the beginning when all of this started, in regular times.
Yeah, and you have these avenues both to film and TV that you've been able to draw on. What has it meant to you?
Yeah. Well, I've been extremely fortunate that my career happened to be kind of moving in a television and film direction since Fun Home, really, which is not to say that I won't be back on stage as soon as I can be. But so I've been fortunate. I've been able to do some work in the past few months on a HBO series called The Gilded Age that's hiring a great deal of Broadway and New York theatrical talent. And then I also have a band and play music, so I'm able to kind of make my own creative fulfillment that way. And we're all spread out all over the place. Most of the band is in New Orleans, where I spend a lot of my time. And we're sending files back and forth and recording things long distance remotely. I've upped my Pro Tools skills and my editing software skills, things I never imagined that I would be able to do. All just to kind of keep busy and keep creative.
I want to talk a bit more about that, because you're lucky enough to call New York, and one of my favorite cities, New Orleans, home. And that is a city that really lives on music. And as a veteran who starred in Tommy, tell us about your band Loose Cattle. And look, there's no live music out there, but what have you been able to do to get by and to keep focused on that?
Well, increasingly there is beginning to be live music in New Orleans anyway, and somewhat in New York as well. But we haven't been able to play live yet as a band. We've mostly been just, writing new things and sending files back and forth to each other. We've put out several singles, kind of pandemic responses. We've done covers of a David Bowie song, Heroes, and a
Love that song.
John Cale song, Fear's a Man's Best Friend. And then we've been writing new stuff that kind of speaks to the moment now. We also had an album that we were about to release last April. When in 2020, and held on to it because it just didn't seem the right time to be trying to put music out then. So we're going to finally release that in June, and and hope that maybe there'll be some opportunities to play outdoors at least in the summer months.
Michael, you are a successful TV film and musician, but is theater your first love? Are you going to go back to that?
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up in the theater. It's been the source of the bulk of my career. I'll always return to the theater, but I enjoy having the opportunity to experience things in different media, and there aren't the barriers that there used to be, I think, between people who are stage actors and people who are film or TV actors. There's a lot of crossover. I'm really proud to have had a career as a stage actor, which is a pretty
Special
rare
thing.
thing to be able to do. And I'll never be too far from the stage, but I am very much enjoying the television work I've gotten to do.
Well, Michael, one final thing. If nothing else, remember, Ukiah rules.
Well, yes, you and I go way back to Huntington, West Virginia, where I used to watch your band and dream of being as good as you guys were. So Ukiah was our attempt to just live up to the standard that you set.
Okay, Michael, we'll talk more about that later. Thank you very much, as always. Appreciate it.